as we bring in the general manager, Dave Ziegler. How are you, Dave?
Outstanding. Thanks for having me today,
Good
JT.
to have you. Appreciate you making time. As I just said, there's a nice window coming up here, as it feels like you've been gone a while, right? And now you come home after two really emotional overtime victories.
Yeah. One, we're excited to be back at home and to be in front of Raider Nation. And, we've got a lot of support from Raider Nation on the road, too. They really showed up in Seattle, and they impacted the game, too. There's just a level of comfort that you get when you go into an away stadium and you see all the silver and black, and our fans, they let you know when they're there. They're not sitting on their hands. And so, so that part was awesome. And it was an emotional win, and it was fun to be able to share it with the fan base. But we're excited to get back into Allegiant and see all the silver and black in there, and put out a good performance in front of the home group.
I just interviewed the head coach, and I asked him about that walk-off play, and it's great video. And you were there to hear the crowd, and then the Raider Nation when he got to about the 40-50 on the Raider side, and then took off. And the roar of the Raider crowd and how quiet Seattle was, that was a rare moment in social media history.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was good.
I really enjoyed that. And just, it's been, I would say, even throughout the year, and obviously it hasn't, we haven't won as many games as we have liked to have won up to this point. But, the Raider fan base and just the support that we receive, and their dedication to the team and their passion for the team, it's a lot of fun. It motivates you to want to win, for that group even more. And that's the thing is for me and for Josh and myself, we've had the opportunity to go to the mountaintop. Yeah. I personally have been to 4 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl rings, and have got to experience all the things that come along with that. We want to do that for Raider Nation. That's part of the motivation is to win for Mark and to win for this fan base, and that's what's going to be rewarding about this. Our run here is being able to do that. It's not for me and it's not for Josh. I mean, we want to win, but we want to win for Mark and we want to win for Raider Nation, and that's the goal.
You've been in a lot of celebrations and bigger games, playoff games and Super Bowl, but for regular season, to see you in the locker room with the head coach, Maxx Crosby, waiting for Derek to come in, then waiting for Josh to come in, the genuine appreciation that you had for those moments, especially because, Dave, it's so rare, even in Major League Baseball or in the NBA, to win back-to-back overtime games on the road and then come home again. Did that hit you guys on the plane, how rare it is to do that?
Yeah. Josh and I looked over at each other at one point on the plane ride home and just smiled and shook our heads. Wow. What occurred the last 2 weeks were special wins, and what I mean by their special wins is because they were hard fought. And they weren't special in the sense of it's not the AFC Championship, it's not the Super Bowl. But when you've seen a group of men, I would say the players and the coaches that have went through a lot of adversity throughout the season, haven't lived up to certain expectations in certain areas, and to know the amount of work that the coaches put in, the hours that they put in, what we demand for our players, and to start to see them get rewarded and get the payoff, that's where my emotion is. My emotion and excitement is after the game is because I'm excited for them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to celebrate a victory now because they're hard to come by, and we're going to have some fun when we do it.
Dave Ziegler's our guest. So what was wrong in the early part of the year when you look back? We talked about preparation, which we believe everybody has a good practice week. Now, not all going to be perfect, but these 6 one-loss game possession games compared to now these overtime wins. Have you seen something different in regards to practice, meetings, film study, preparation, or was it pretty much the same in week 2 as it is right now?
No, I think we've grown in all those areas. And when I say we, I think, the guys on the team have grown in terms of now, let me just say this. This is a hard program. We demand a lot. We demand a lot when it comes to preparation. We demand a lot when it comes to practice habits. We demand a lot when it comes to attention to detail and accountability. That just doesn't happen. You have to work at that. You have to teach people what that means. And not just the players, but that's happening in the scouting department too. You have to teach them what those standards are. And guys have grown in that way. Guys have started to understand a little bit more what it takes from a preparation standpoint, what it takes to be dialed in and focused at practice to be able to take what you're doing on the practice field and do it in a live situation. Now, we're not perfect at that, but guys are starting to learn, and now they're starting to see some of the results of that. And I think at the beginning of the year, I don't think not everybody had the understanding of what that was, and that's not to anybody's fault. That's part of the process when you put a bunch of people together that are new, and I think that's part of it. And I think the other thing is the last 2 weeks, what we had a problem with at the beginning of the year, and again, there's no guarantee we couldn't have that problem this week, sure. Is we weren't creating a lot of negative plays on defense, but we were creating a lot of negative plays on offense with penalties. And a lot of 3rd and 17s, 2nd and 25s, and things like that. And when you're not creating negative plays on the defensive side of the ball, but you're inflicting a lot of negative plays on yourself, it's a really tough formula to win a close game. And I think, we've done a good job of that in the last 2 weeks. But it's, again, to your question, it's a lot about the process and people learning what it takes.
Dave Ziegler, GM of the Raiders, is our guest. So I want to stay on that because I picked it up with Mick Lombardi when he spoke the other day. Your evaluation, your standard is higher. That's not a knock against other organizations. That's just where you came from with your success you had, and now the players are starting to understand that. So that is kind of a buy-in question, but it's also evaluation and how a player handles, well, we lost 2 in a row, or 2 out of 3, or 3 out of 4, and I'm coming in here and I'm getting evaluated. I'm being graded. And how the player handles that mentally, that's a process that obviously could take more than a season or 6 games. I'm starting to see that where some players are better than others of taking criticism and rolling ahead.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking for long term. Is at the end of the day, we want to bring players in here that have a passion for football, that want to invest in the process, that like to get pushed, that like to get critical feedback, that like to grind through practices and do it in the weight room, and they're about self-growth. And we want to get 53-plus guys that have that mindset. And, when we're going through this process, that's what we're evaluating. We're evaluating from my perspective and from Josh's perspective, not just the actual physical skill set on the field, but who has that DNA, and I think it's championship DNA, because I think to have that mindset that's how you win championships is when you have a lot of people that are invested in the process, that like to be pushed, that like to be told that they're not doing something well so they can improve it. We're evaluating who those players are. Who are the guys that want to get better, that want to take critical feedback, that like to get pushed, that like to grind, that love the game. And when we get more, as we find out who those guys are and start to stack the team with those guys, and a lot of that's my responsibility. That's what building a sustained winner is about. That's part of it.
Dave Ziegler is our guest. So what improvements have you seen off the field that you've been striving for?
Yeah, I think again, I'd say there's a few things here. I think one thing, there's a few things that you have to have in place to build a championship caliber program that has some sustained success. Like, forget what happens on the field. Like, the one thing that you have to have that I saw in New England, I've seen a lot of other places, Baltimore, Green Bay, Pittsburgh. One, there's a level of continuity, right? But there's a harmonious relationship between the head coach and the GM and the scouting and the coaching staff. Like, if you don't have that harmonious relationship, it's going to be hard to win. You might catch lightning in a bottle, but in terms of building a sustained winner. And so I've seen a lot of growth here in the building of just that relationship between coaching, between scouting. Me and Josh have had it, and now it's starting to spread roots through not just coaching and scouting, but now through the support staff. Like, we have an outstanding support staff here, but you have to create buy-in, and you have to get on the same page, and you have to build a relationship there. And so to have something that's aligned, there's not a lot of football teams that have a really strong alignment. And so that's been something that's really been, that's not on the field, no one's going to see it, but that's grown in the building, and that's really important to our success. And the same thing, like what accountability and attention to detail means for us. And then teaching what that means to not only the players, but the scouts, to the support staff, to the strength and conditioning staff. Like, that has really been something that's grown roots and has really improved throughout the last 12 weeks. And I could go on and on, about like what we're doing from a scouting perspective, the growth that I've seen from our college scouts in terms of what we require when it comes to getting character and background research on players, really knowing the players that we're drafting, who they are, what makes them tick. All those are all things that have been taught. We just didn't come in and throw guys out on the road and say, hey, go at it. Like, that's something that's the foundation for that. And where we're at now compared to where we were at when I came in is another major improvement that, again, you have to have in place if you're going to build something that sustains.
GM Dave Ziegler joins us. So as we wrap this up, if critics are asking about the culture in the building, that's what critics do. And they say, well, what's happening here? Who's buying in? Who's going to be here next year? What has changed in your tenureship here with the culture when you drive in here every day from football operations and especially the players and your expectations?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing is, and we saw it during some of these times of losing. That's when it gets tested, right? It's all smooth, and you can cover up a lot of warts when you're winning. But when you're losing, it all gets put out on the table. And we just recently lost 3 games in a row, right? We lost to New Orleans, we lost to Jacksonville, and we lost to the Colts. That's a recipe for a collapse, right? But because of the relationships that we've built and putting a priority on treating people the right way, putting a priority on self-growth, creating a culture where critical feedback is something that's just a part of what we do. And so, like, not only have players gotten better if we've done that, coaches have gotten better. We don't just sit around and pat each other on the back.
Right.
You know, we're critical with each other. We're critical with our assistant coaches. We're critical with our scouts. But you can do that when you've built a relationship, a respectful relationship on the front end, and you invest in your growth and they know that you care about them. And that's why we haven't had a fracture. That's why the culture is strong. That's how Josh treats the team. Josh has been consistent week in and week out. And having that model of consistency, of level-headedness, of continuing to be respectful when things are going bad, to treat people the right way when things aren't going your way. That's why the culture is what it is. That's why there's the critics out there that they're doing this, they're doing that. No, we've won 2 in a row, and we've won 2 in a row in tough environments. And we've played tough games because of all this stuff that's going on behind the scenes.
I want to get into Maxx Crosby. I'm a big believer with individual awards. I go back to baseball. Andre Dawson won an MVP on a last-place Cubs team. The record isn't there, as you said, but Maxx Crosby's individual play, and a lot of it has to do with his coaches and teammates, has put him at a very, very high level where he's being discussed in that category. And as you know, you don't get that award very often. T.J. Watt, J.J. Watt, when it comes around, I grew up with Lawrence Taylor. You want to be the Defensive Player of the Year, let alone the MVP. What have you seen from Maxx behind the scenes and what you see on the field that puts him in this category where he could be Defensive Player of the Year?
And I think, I think he should be the Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, I'm biased. But behind the scenes, it's kind of what we've talked about. That's why he's a cornerstone and he's a foundational brick in this whole process and this whole team building piece, is because the work ethic, the unselfishness, the drive to get better every day, the humbleness to look at oneself and say, I need to get better in these 3 areas, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get better and improve. That's why you've seen the growth in Maxx Crosby as the player. And he's grown on the personal side too, obviously, in his tenure here that he's been in the league. So there's that piece. On the field, he takes over games.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes over games, and he takes over games on all 3 downs. It's not just the pass rush stuff. He penetrates and tackles for loss. In the Seattle game, there was 2 rushes on 3rd down where we needed someone to make a play on the quarterback. That's what he did. Yeah. He took over the game, and he made a play in the critical moments when it counts. And like you said, when you don't have a winning record, you don't have maybe as many of those critical moments, to win a game where you're one of the deciding factors. And I think Maxx showed that this past week, and he showed it in Denver, and he showed it throughout the year. But when you're losing or on the losing side of things, it doesn't get advertised as much. But pure and simple, the guy can take over a game on 3 downs. He creates a lot of negative plays. Teams have to game plan how to stop Maxx Crosby, and I think those are a lot of the elements that go into someone that's a Defensive Player of the Year.
One more for you, Dave, on a personal note with your job here, where the calendar is you're evaluating players who might not be here or will be here next year. What is that process like? Because you've talked candidly about Josh and his contract potentially going forward. You have time on that. But when you look at other players, Jonathan Abram was let go. You're looking at other players who are going to get more reps. Guys got to come off IR. Guys got to prove they can play coming off IR. What's that like for you personally when you look at the calendar every day, how many games are left, and you want to win every game?
Yeah. Well, there's a level of stress that goes along with it, obviously, because you want to win and you want to make decisions that are going to help the team win. And I think at the end of the day, like some of those decisions that we go back to, like we said, is we want to have players that can execute on Sundays with what they were taught and take it from the meeting room and take it to the practice field and be able to execute in pressure situations. And so as we're looking at, like, we make a lot of decisions based on that. And if guys are struggling doing that consistently, and there's another guy that's behind, maybe he's a undrafted free agent, maybe he's Tyler Hall, who we signed after a workout or whatever it is, and they're showing more of those attributes, then we have to give those guys opportunities because we're trying to win now, right? Like we're always trying to win now. We're going to always try to win now, but we're also trying to figure out who's going to fit into this picture long term. Who's going to be here for the years of consistent winning. And so you have to make some tough decisions and kind of balance things out of saying, we're not getting exactly what we need out of, individual A, play in and play out. Individual B is showing it during the week in practice. He's doing all the right things off the field. Like, we're going to give those guys opportunities. And so when you're looking at the calendar, you're balancing, again, that short term with the long term. But at the end of the day, we're going to give guys opportunities that are showing the traits and the qualities that we know you need to have to survive here in this program, and not only survive, but thrive in this program, and that's what we're doing here.
Chargers last one. You weren't here for that game, but you watched it.
Sure.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
I really believe, honestly, it was the greatest football game ever played for a last game of the season, with the Steelers riding on it, the Chargers, and to eliminate them. They're coming in here really bitter about that loss.
Sure.
It changed the outcome of their season. They're a good team. They got guys banged up. You have guys banged up, but you're home. Mm-hmm. And coming off this and the Cliff Branch celebration, which is going to be incredible. The place is packed. It's a rivalry game going back to Sid Gillum, Al Davis, Bill Walsh, and the organization from the LA Chargers. What does that mean to you to represent this team, knowing the fans are coming home to see you, excited about those wins? And this is a make-or-break game, make-or-break for the Chargers, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big game.
Yeah.
And we're not going to hide from that fact. And I wouldn't say all the other things that you mentioned with Cliff and the fans and things like that, it's not pressure that weighs on you type of pressure. It's excitement. And we're very excited for this week. We're excited to represent, for Cliff. We're excited to represent for Raider Nation. When you're in this business, you like big games, know, and for a while there, it was like we were in some games where it was like, oh man, we just need to win because we hadn't won that much. And, we've won a couple of row. This is a bigger game in terms of how this could play out here this year. We still have our goals in front of us. And so just a lot of excitement. And, there's a lot of excitement from the players. There's a lot of excitement from the staff. And what it goes back to, JT, as I've said many a times, we're going to win the game through our preparation throughout the week. And, we've challenged the guys here, this week to continue to prepare and to continue to grow and continue to challenge yourself of what can you do more? What can you do more during the week? And we're hopeful that preparation during the week will lead to a positive outcome on Sunday.
Thanks for your time, Dave.
Appreciate you.
Great to see you.
Yep,
Dave Ziegler, the GM